We're going to kind of open it up again for folks who might be new to this evening. So as a reminder, we did start the night with our Weber and Davis County changes. The last hour we spent looking at Salt Lake County proposed changes, and then now we are moving into our Tooele and Utah County changes. As a rough overview of our agenda, we will go into the detail on the proposed changes, and there will be ample opportunity for you all to ask questions, and we can have a discussion about that. We're looking forward to it, and we will have a comment opportunity at the tail end of that. I forgot to introduce myself again. If you're new here, my name is Megan Waters. I'm the Community Engagement Manager at UTA. I'm joined by some colleagues on the phone, and I will introduce Eric Callison. He's our Service Planning Manager. He's going to be taking the reins on going into the detail on proposed service changes. But before we go into that, and you'll hear this a couple of times probably, but we do want to give some background and context on these proposed changes. So the proposed changes do support long-term system improvement. They are bringing service in line with UTA's 5-year service plan and other regional transportation plans. You'll see on the list a lot of changes that were made in 2020. These were emergency changes that are now undergoing the public process to finalize the current service that's on the street. So there's not new changes being proposed to many of them, but we are finalizing changes that were made back in 2020 as a result of reductions or service changes due to the COVID-19 pandemic. We will continue to evaluate those routes ongoing and in the future. Finally, we just want to say some of the changes as well are a product of resource constraints and staffing challenges here at UTA. And so you'll see that reflected as well in the proposed service changes. So I'm going to hand it over to Eric to go into our Utah and Tooele County proposed changes.
All right, thanks, Megan. I'm going to share a different presentation here for just a second. I'll be going over the changes for Utah and Tooele County, as I mentioned. Just a couple of other things for background. As Megan just mentioned, we did make a number of emergency changes in April of 2020 due to the COVID-19 pandemic. We have been able to improve service on a lot of those routes since then. Some of them are actually running at a higher level of service than they were prior to COVID. But we're not everywhere that we want to be yet. And so we're, as we mentioned, we're dealing with some staffing problems, just a very tight staffing situation, trying to do everything that we can to hire additional drivers to run more service. We're following the federal requirements and kind of finishing up the process for those changes. So as I go through, I will say some of these changes already happened. It's not going to be any different from the service that you see on the street today. But we will be covering them, and you're welcome to comment on them as part of the public process. And we do an ongoing evaluation of these routes. We look at the ridership data on a daily basis. We especially are looking for places where there's a lot of ridership, a lot of boardings on the bus at the same time, to see if we can try to alleviate those situations. And we'll do everything that we can within those constraints, especially within the number of drivers that we have. But we're definitely pushing toward restoring some of the service that was suspended or reduced during COVID, and even improving it in other areas that we didn't serve prior to COVID. So I'm going to go through the changes. As I do so, just note, one last note, that we'll be talking about routing changes, hours of service changes, or what we call the span of service, and frequency changes, but we're not going to cover scheduled times tonight. So what time does the bus leave a specific stop? We are not to that point in our process yet. We will not finalize that until after the public comment period is over, and we've had a chance to review all the feedback that we've received. So we may say that a route has no changes in this presentation, but it could still have schedule adjustments on August change day. So there might be a few additional routes included by the time we get to change day, just because we've made adjustments to the schedules. So we'll cover all of that here in just a minute. Just real quick to talk about rail. We do have reduced frequency on tracks and the S line on weekends versus 2019. We have restored some of that service, but we're hoping to do more of that in the future. Front Warner, we are running most of the trips that we did prior to COVID, but there are still some trip times that we used to run that we're not still running. We hope to restore those again as soon as possible. I'm going to skip just a second specifically to Tooele County and Utah County. Since that's what we're here for at this moment. We don't have any residual changes from COVID to Tooele County. We did have a public hearing in December, or not in December, but for December 2021 change day, where we addressed several things. But we do have a couple of additional changes for Tooele County. The biggest ones being Route F400 and F402. Those are currently flex routes that operate within the city of Tooele. Will be discontinued and replaced by UTA on-demand service. I'll give a moment after I'm done talking for Ryan Taylor to just take a minute and talk about the on-demand service in Tooele. We'll be replacing the flex routes and the existing call and ride on-demand service that's being run by Tooele County that will cover Tooele, Grantsville, Stansbury Park, and the areas in between them. We'll hear more detail about that in a minute, but that is kind of the big change for Tooele. As well as Route F453, currently travels from 2400 North Park and Ride in Tooele to 1950 West in Salt Lake City. With the arrival of the on-demand zone, we're going to just move that so that it starts at Benson Grist Mill and extends all the way into downtown. It will match the route of Route 451 through this area so that we have consistent service throughout the day and a connection to the on-demand service at Benson Grist Mill. And this is just a picture of this UTA on-demand route in Tooele Valley, or not route, but the service rather, the service area. So this is Tooele, Grantsville, Stansbury Park, and there's a transfer to either the 451 or the F453 at the Benson Grist Mill. If it's all right, Ryan, I'd like to give you just a minute if you want to just talk a little bit more about this on-demand service. Ryan is our Special Services General Manager, and he's been very involved in this process with Tooele County.
Thank you, Eric. So this change in Tooele County would essentially eliminate the two flex routes that run in Tooele City and add a tremendous amount of coverage that would cover the most dense areas of Tooele, Stansbury Park, and Grantsville, connecting all three of those communities, and also adding service there to a large Walmart distribution center that's just outside of Grantsville. When we look at the accessibility to public transit, this provides just so much more of an increase of accessibility. We're anticipating that this would run Monday through Friday, approximately the hours of 7 to 7, and it would operate just like our other on-demand services in this area. There's also going to be a phone and an ability to use your phone to hail a ride if you don't have a smartphone and an app. And so that will be accessible, and all the vehicles, again, will be fully accessible for those who have disabilities or if they have any sort of mobility issue. So we're excited to offer the service, to expand the service to far greater amount of people in the Tooele greater area through the on-demand service.
Thanks so much, Ryan. And we will have an opportunity for questions and comments in just a few minutes when I stop talking. So if you have any questions, feel free to put those in the chat or raise your hand to let us know that you'd like to unmute. We'll continue just to the Utah County changes. We don't have a whole lot of new changes for Utah County, but we do need to go over the changes that have occurred since the beginning of the COVID pandemic. So you can see on this list, we did increase the service on several of the routes in Utah County. It's Route 821 in Southern Utah County, Route 831 in Provo, and Route 841 in Orem. We increased the hours of service on those routes, as well as increasing the frequency of service on weekdays on Route 821. UVX, we did reduce to a lower frequency on the whole line. We will be talking about putting some of that frequency back, but we will still be running a reduced frequency on the East Bay Loop. So that's Town Center Station, and the stations at East Bay. But the rest of the line will be returning to 6-minute frequency in this proposal. And then we also have reductions on Route 833. We did reduce the service at the beginning of the pandemic on Route 833, and that's the level of service that we'll have to continue to run for the time being. Route 850 and 862, we did increase the hours of service on those routes on both weekdays and Saturdays. And then there's 2 routes on here that were suspended at the beginning of COVID and will remain suspended for just a little while longer. One of those is Route 809, which travels in Pleasant Grove and American Fork. That was suspended at the beginning of the pandemic. We do intend to reinstate that at some point, but at the moment we don't have the resources to do so. That is in our 5-year service plan to restore service to Route 809. We also have Route 864, which serves the Thanksgiving Point area around Lehigh Front Runner Station. We do intend to replace that with UTA on-demand service in the future as soon as we're able. But for now, we're keeping that route on the books, even though it's still suspended, kind of as a placeholder for that future service. So for new changes for Utah County, the main thing is that we do propose to return to 6-minute service during rush hour on the main line of UVX. So that's between Provo Station and Orem Station. That includes BYU and UVU, downtown Provo, University Parkway, and Orem. But to continue running the service that we have been running with service every 15 to 20 minutes, approximately every 20 minutes on the East Bay Loop. Again, that's from Provo Station south to the Provo Town Center Mall and East Bay. And that is the changes for Tooele and Utah County. So at this point, I'll stop sharing my screen and I'll hand it back to Megan. And we'll answer questions and take comments at this point.
Great. I did respond in the chat, but there was a question about whether on-demand will be coming to Utah Valley. And it sounds like you answered that, that it's in the service plan for the future, but not yet scheduled. Can you confirm that?
That's correct. So we do have 2 UTA on-demand areas currently in our 5-year service plan. That the one is the Thanksgiving Point area that I mentioned, and the other is West Provo, some of the area that the Route 833 currently covers, but it would cover a much larger area than we're currently able to access without Route 833. Those are in the plan, and we will implement those as soon as we have the resources to do so, but we don't have a definite timeline at this point because that does largely depend on how fast we're able to hire drivers.
Thanks for that response. I am not seeing anything else in the chat, but I just want to remind everyone you are welcome to raise your hand to ask a question. Use the raise your hand function. You can type in the chat if you have a question or if you'd like to be unmuted. And there's also the Q&A feature, which works very similarly to the chat box for us. In our last session, we talked a little bit about the 5-year service plan. I'm going to put a link to that in the chat just in case anyone is new on the call since 7 p.m. And maybe Eric, if you want to give a little bit of an overview of the 5-year service plan for this group once again.
Sure. Let me just switch my windows a couple more times. I have a lot of windows open on my computer at the moment. All right, so if you could unshare for a second, Megan, I'll pull this up just so to give everybody a brief explanation.
Yep, there you go.
Thank you. So this diagram, right now we're kind of in the second phase right here, the service planning phase. The 5-year service plan update, it's a 5-year plan, but we update it every 2 years. We're currently in our second of those 5-year plans, and we will be doing another update later this year. So however you get your news from UTA, there will be opportunities for public engagement on 5-year service plan as well. So please, we'd love to have as many people as possible weigh in on the plan as soon as possible. But we do have several processes that we go through. I mentioned in the last session We do go over every single piece of customer feedback that we've received in the last 2 years. We said it's a 2-year cycle, and we try to aggregate that in the way that makes the most sense to have the best impact to the most people. We also work with local stakeholders, such as business owners, human service providers, groups like Department of Services for the Blind, Workforce Services. We also work with universities, large employment centers, try to figure out where the gaps are and what we can do to address them. We do get some input from the public and from stakeholders at that point, and then we revise the scenarios kind of into a final that we do the large public comment period on. Once we've received public comment, then we finalize the plan and it gets approved by the UTA Local Advisory Council and the Board of Trustees. And once the Board of Trustees has approved that plan, it becomes the official 5-year service plan for the next 2 years. But then you'll notice on this diagram, we do still have 2 more phases to go through. So right now we're right at the end of this service planning phase. Once we've concluded the public comment for these August 2022 changes, we'll go into, like I mentioned earlier, go into the schedules in more detail. What time does the bus or train leave, what station? And then we'll actually move to the implementation, which happens on August Change Day. So it's a very, very long process. My job is never boring. But we do hope to hear from everyone. Tell all your friends, to comment on the 5-year service plan when we expect to have a public comment opportunity later this year after we've had a chance to react to all the feedback and requests that we receive.
Great, thanks, Eric. I'm gonna throw the question slide back up just so we know what we're doing. And I am going to ask Kevin to unmute. Kevin, would you like to ask a question?
Okay, I just have one question here. I would really like you to provide Sunday service with the front runner. I don't know why you folks haven't yet, especially since you have Sunday service at the tracks, and that would really be nice because sometimes I vacation to Utah and I'm in Utah County. I'd like to go up to Salt Lake on Sunday, and it takes forever to get there on bus number 850. And then, then I have to take tracks to the West Jordan. It takes forever. I don't know why you haven't started Sunday service. That is long overdue. That would be awesome.
So definitely something that we hope to do again, as soon as possible. We have big dreams for Front Runner, for On Demand. For all our services. We appreciate your comments. We know that Front Runner on Sunday service would get used, and there's a couple of operating challenges that we would need to overcome, and there's always the question of how many people we can hire to drive it, but that's definitely something that we will consider in our next 5-year plan update, see if there is the resources to do it.
Well, I don't know if it's true. I heard the reason they were able to get Front Runner to Utah County is because they made an agreement not to run on Sunday. I don't know if that's true, but if that's true, that mentality's got to change. I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I can guarantee you there's good members out there riding the service on Sunday, like it or not.
I honestly don't know if that's true or not. I don't know, Nicole or Mary, if you're able to speak to that point, maybe a little bit more.
I think I would just speak and let you know that's not what I know of how we would do service. I don't think there's no formal agreement that I know of this. And going forward, it is in our plans. I think Eric spoke pretty truly about how we have to look at it operationally and integrate it in there along with cost, because Front Runner is an expensive service as well. But I don't think there is no reason for us not to do it as per an agreement with some organization or another organization. It's more about timing and how it fits with our service and our funding.
Yeah, this is Mary Delamar Schiffer. I'm the regional general manager in Utah County, and just want to echo what Nicole said. There was no agreement at all. It's an issue of I think funding and some operational issues that Eric was talking about things we do on Sunday so that we can get ready for the rest of the week. So I know that it's the number one question that I get asked everywhere in Utah County is when we will have service. And it's something that we talk a lot about. And I think that it absolutely will be in our future. Thank you.
What are the operational challenges you have to provide Sunday service on FrontRunner?
Well, I can tell you just a couple of them, Kevin. I know that we do move trains around, state of good repair is done at that time, and then there may be some other obligations other than that, but I do know that's some of the operational things, but that's not all. I would want to defer to our regional general manager on there, but I do know that's when we have been doing a lot of our state of good repair, as well as how we move the trains so they're ready for our commuter service on Monday.
One more question I have for you, then I'll shut up here. Would you ever consider providing an express heavy rail service, let's say from Utah County to Tremonton? That would be pretty cool.
So again, this is Nicole Bordeaux, the Chief Planning Engagement Officer. I think, Kevin, one of the things that is also on our website, and hopefully we could get you information of this, is the future of FrontRunner. And they're looking at express trains, not necessarily all the way to Tremonton, but we do have plans to buy right-of-way and get in preparation for some kind of expansion of FrontRunner and what that looks like. So our team, along with UDOT, is working on looking at that, what express trains look like, what is double track, and how we can offer more and expanded service in the future.
Okay.
Thanks, Kevin. Mary or Eric, anything to add onto those questions?
I would just say we're definitely exploring, the expansion of FrontRunner and the Sunday service. Unfortunately, we don't have a specific timeline for that yet. But this is a process. Every 2 years we update the 5-year service plan, and so as soon as we can figure it out with budget and resources and logistics, that we would want to put increases to FrontRunner service and to other services as well into the 5-year service plan, and implement them from there.
This is Mary. Can you still hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, I can.
Unmuted? No. Okay, sorry. I would like to point out that we did just finish a study looking at FrontRunner going from Provo to Payson, and then an express bus from Santa Quin to Payson. And while we're not ready to build it, we are starting into the environmental process, so that's underway. The good news is that you're asking for more service in Utah County, and I think you have a lot of support from community members in Utah County to improve transit. So thanks for your input.
Thanks all. Thanks, Kevin, for your questions. Do you have any other comments?
Nope, I'm good.
Thanks so much for chiming in. So I'll put you on mute and if you want to make a comment later, feel free to raise your hand again. So we got a question in the Q&A. What can you tell me about the Pioneer Lake Road Station FrontRunner station? Does anyone have a response to that?
This is Mary. Are you talking about in the Saratoga Springs, Eagle Mountain area?
Good clarification. So will the participant who asked that question please specify where that is, since it is not a current station? So just specify kind of what region or city you're talking about.
Megan, I can add that we just completed a study in the Eagle Mountain, Saratoga Springs area, recommending that we build 2 park and ride lots, where one in Saratoga Springs, one in Eagle Mountain, where buses could more easily and more frequently go from the park and ride to the FrontRunner stations to add service. And we'll be looking in this 5-year update at examining, is there an opportunity for on-demand in that area as well? And we'll be looking to see if that's helpful. So I don't know what Pioneer Lake is, but does it mean Pioneer Crossing?
Thanks, Mary. Yeah, it looks like they've clarified. It looks like they've clarified that they're talking about Vineyard.
Oh, okay. So the Vineyard State FrontRunner station is scheduled to open this change day, April 17th. we're running into some construction delays. The developer who will be doing all kinds of development in the area around the Frontrunner station has responsibility for completing some roads and putting in a signal. I'm not 100% sure that's going to be completed in time for the 17th, but would expect it shortly after. So stay tuned to UTA. We'll certainly update you when we have more clarification in the next couple of weeks if that's going to happen. The station is built. It's the access to the station that's being worked on right now.
Thanks, Mary. The follow-up question to that is what bus route will go there? Eric, do you want to talk about the bus route?
Yep, I'll just bring up this map one more time. If you can unshare, I'll share it real quick. The bus that will serve Vineyard Frontrunner Station at this point is Route 834. I've highlighted it here on the map. We'll travel through Vineyard City to Center Street and then continue on Center Street across Orem. I could transfer to a number of other bus routes there, and then it will continue on its current route through the Riverwoods and down into Provo as well. That's going to be the bus service that's there initially, and we may also expand that in the future again as our resources allow. But that change will happen on April Change Day as well. Bus route 834 will get extended into the station, and if the station's not open, then the bus will still go there. It'll just be a couple of weeks with the bus until the train comes in. But we'll try to provide updates on social media and all of our public information channels on what the schedule is for that.
Great, thank you for those questions. I do see another hand, one from Fernando. I am going to unmute you, Fernando, and feel free to ask your question.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. You're a little bit quiet.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me now?
If you can
Hello?
talk as loud as you can, yeah, we can hear you, but it's pretty quiet.
Oh, is it? Can you hear me now? Or
Yeah, that's good.
That's better.
okay. I just had a question. What I was wondering if there's any way you guys would be able to expand the 821, especially to like the west side of Springville by the Visitor Industries and Walmart area. There hasn't I haven't seen the 821 run there, and I'm also a paratransit rider, and the 3/4 mile limit where I have to go is to a middle school, and it's not always easy to get rides or to take an Uber because of the gas prices. So I was wondering if you guys would or if you guys would make it more accessible on the west side of Springville.
Thanks for that question. I'm going to pull up the 5-year plan again. I'll just describe kind of what's in there a little bit too, because we do have a change in the 5-year plan that hopefully will address that question for you. Let me just share my screen again. I know Megan and I have been doing this dance all evening of unsharing and sharing, but I'll pull this up. And right here, let me zoom in just a little bit more. You can see it currently in Springville, Route 821 comes up from Spanish Fork and goes through Springville on its way to Provo. But we're proposing to split that into 2 routes. So we have Route 821 that would continue from Spanish Fork up into Provo directly. And then a new Route 823 that would serve Springville, between Springville and Provo. So that would come down Main Street like it does now over to 4th East, down to 4th South, but then we would like to extend it on 4th South over to the area by Walmart, IHOP and all of that, and have the bus serve that part of Springville that we haven't been able to serve before. That's definitely something that we want to do as quickly as possible. We haven't been able to do it yet, again, because of resource constraints, hiring drivers. But that is in our 5-year service plan, and it's definitely something that we'll do as soon as we're able to.
Okay, yeah, that's cool. Do you know like the by chance the frequency of how long that bus would run and stuff like that?
The proposal is for all day service every 30 minutes. So that would be from about 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. It might be a little bit shorter than that initially, but it would be similar service to what Route 821 is running right now. It would just be on a different route that extends further west.
Okay. That was my question.
Thanks so much for your question. Okay, I am not seeing any more hands raised or any other chat. So I'm going to move us on to the comment portion. So if you would like to make an official comment about the changes that we've reviewed this evening, please feel free again to type in the chat or raise your hand and we can allow you to speak. Not seeing any comments. You're welcome for using Zoom. If there is, if you weren't able to, if you know anyone that wanted to attend but wasn't able to, this recording will be available after this evening. We'll have it on our YouTube as well as on our webpage at rideUTA.com/August. It's also being live streamed right now to our Facebook page. And so the recording will also be housed there. So this information will live on and you'll be able to view it in the future too if you want to. I do see a couple more hands popping up. So I'm going to unmute Bridget. Bridget, would you like to make a comment?
Yes, I'm sorry. There was something very weird with the thing. So it kept popping up mute and unmute, and I couldn't see most of everything you were talking about. It would cover up the map. So I don't really know why it kept doing that, but I don't know if other people had that problem. So a quick thing, they just did, I have a Hive Pass, but they just did the free fair day here in the, I don't know how, all the way across in February. Will there be any, because that seemed to be something that people were quite interested in that aren't like me that did go and try transit. Will that be something they're thinking about doing or not again, that free fair month?
Thanks for that question. And we will have a report coming out to kind of overview what all occurred during Free Fair February. There was a lot of enthusiasm. Nicole, would you like to speak to future efforts?
Yeah, that's great. We have had a partnership over the last, I'd say, 2 years with Clean Cities, or Clean Air Utah, and basically we've been able to do 1 or 2 free days. With that said, though, currently our metropolitan organizations, along with UTA and UDOT, are studying what free fare would look like for the whole system and what timeframes, and if we wanted to implement something like that. So that study has started and finishes around August. So we'll have some more information. What I would tell you right now is everyone seems very happy with how the results went. And there's other stakeholders and cities already asking about how they can continue to do things like this in the future. As you know, there's a free fare zone downtown. Mayor Mendenhall is interested in what that looks like expanded or changing the Hive Pass so there's less barriers to access. In Utah County, the UVX system is free, as well as OGX will start, which is our Ogden BRT will start free. So I think you're going to see a lot of these programs, be it one-offs, months, or things continuing while we study what it looks like to even have a system that may be free or free to some that need it the most. So we should have some information for you this fall about what that looks like. Thanks for that question, Bridget.
You're welcome. Because I know in this neighborhood, when people see me with my little yellow pass, they don't seem to know about the Hive Pass. You have city residents. I don't know. I guess those of us who've had it for a long time, but a lot of people really don't even know as a city resident that they can pay just $42. So it's just, there are things out there I think sometimes people don't know about, but I think with this meeting, if a coworker had not said something, I would not have known that all these changes were happening in August, because I don't see anything posted in the buses or in tracks or anything. So I don't know if there's more outreach being done so people have the chance to comment. I thank you all I took a disproportionate amount of time earlier, and so I was hesitant to ask anything until I was sure everyone else had had a chance to ask. Thank you.
And we want to make sure that you do get your questions answered. So, we can take give a couple more people a chance to comment and take a couple more questions. Or if you'd like, we can also contact you by email or phone, and we can have a follow-up conversation outside of this meeting as well, because we want to make sure that you get all of your questions answered, and we can get the best possible scenario for you.
Okay. I think you have the email. I don't know that I want to put my phone out here in a public meeting.
No,
Fair
you're good.
enough.
We'll contact you via email.
Okay.
Thanks, Bridget.
Thank you.
We also have Raymond. Raymond, I'm going to ask you to unmute. There you go. Would you like to make a comment or ask a question?
Yes, I had a question. Interesting. I understand the legislature passed $1 billion in their budget towards UTA and building infrastructure, and Biden's passed the infrastructure bill and all of that. Is this going to speed up any of this 5-year plan or your ideas or anything, having this? I don't know if it's newfound money or what, because I hear a lot about not having the resources to do a lot of this. Will that help with all of your plans?
I can answer that. This is Nicole Bordeaux. Raymond, to your point, yes, and no, as they would say, but the infrastructure bills and the cost is really centered around capital. And we have a regional plan that tells us infrastructure like double tracking Front Runner, the program that Mary talked about expanding to Payson. Those are all capital or infrastructure projects that could be sped up, but we'd also have to get the funding to run it as well. So operation and maintenance. So while there's a lot of funding out there right now, which is exciting to get these infrastructure projects finished, we still have to make sure that we have the operating funding that goes along with it. It's our hope that they'll come along together, but we may be getting the infrastructure in and then running service at one level and then hoping to bring it on at a better level as we get those pieces together. So I believe that we will have more opportunity to do some of these infrastructure projects sooner. About when they come online for full operations may be phased due to funding and operations. So I hope that answers your question, but we are very excited about the opportunities we have with that funding.
Okay, yeah, that's good. So I guess if I clear it up to get it straight, you have the money to build it, but you don't have the money to run it, and whatever is allocated to you, you don't have the choice to say, well, we could use so much for running it and so much for building it. You can only, it's designated just for certain things, not for you to be able to, I don't know, say like use some of it to increase service or whatever within the system that you've already have to increase bus routes or putting buses to go to track or Front Runner stations. Because if you don't drive, you can't get to a Front Runner station since there's no bus service going there unless you use Uber or Lyft or maybe this on demand that's starting up.
That's That's a great comment. And I think the state is aware of that. I think we're just in phase one with the infrastructure piece. You'll see a lot of comments about station area design, which really talks about how do we bring people to our stations and have them have access. So to your point, yes, we can't just use the money to say we want to run Front Runner on Sundays or to, put in the route that 823, I think it was. We can't just do that. But what we can is work with our state partners to really talk about what infrastructure needs are and then how we're going to fund it going forward as they get built, the system gets built out. And I think the great thing is they are being our partner in that, knowing that more transit needs to come. And we're really excited about that.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Raymond. Would anyone else like to make a comment? I'm not seeing any at this point. Oh, a hand just went up just in the nick of time. Just kidding. So Milt, I'm going to allow you to talk. Go ahead and unmute and feel free to ask your question or make a comment.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so just a couple of things. I'm really looking forward to this Vineyard Station. I know it's probably been long in coming, so appreciate that. But I really appreciate the opportunity the UTA has been able to make this presentation through Zoom, so as many people as possible can get updated. I think it's a great tool to use, and when the UTA wants to reach the public, it can reach more people this way probably than any other way. So appreciate it.
Thank you. We know there are still some barriers for people accessing this information, and we always welcome feedback on how best to get the information out. But definitely having the online accessibility and then the recordings, we do see people taking advantage of those online tools. All right, so in segue to making comments and getting involved, we are in an open public comment period right now on our August 2022 changes. The deadline for comment is April 1st. You can find ways to get involved at our website at rideuta.com/August. There are a variety of ways that you can make comment, tonight being one of them. But if you have other questions or comments following this webinar, we'd love to hear from you. We do have our customer service team ready to answer questions or take comment. You can call them at 801-743-3882 option 5, or you can email us at hearingofficer@rideuta.com. There's also an online submission for comments at that website at rideuta.com/August. I also want to share a couple of resources for all of you in the community as we go through this public comment period and prepare for potential changes coming. Of course, the website, as I mentioned, we talked a bit about on-demand tonight. rideuta.com/on-demand is a good resource to find information about on-demand service. We also have the transit app and trip planning tools available through Google Maps. Those are great resources to you if your route has changed and there's a replacement route that will help you get where you need to go. Our travel training team is also a wonderful asset. If you are unfamiliar, they provide support in transitioning to a new service or learning a current service, and they are available. If you want to reach out to them, their number is 801-287-2275, or you can find them at travel training at rideuta.com. And again, they can just help support the learning how to ride, basically that process. So that's all we have for you this evening. I'm not seeing any other comments or hands. So I just want to thank you all so much for your involvement. We really appreciate it. Again, this presentation will be available as a recording after this evening. So don't hesitate to reach out to us if you have additional questions or comments. Thanks so much.